There's one area where most men lose composure faster than anywhere else. It isn't politics. It isn't money. It isn't professional rivalry. It's sex. Not because sex is inherently chaotic, because sexuality exposes identity. It exposes hierarchy. It exposes insecurity. It exposes comparison. It exposes approval systems we didn't even know we were operating inside. You can test this. Bring up sexual orientation in a room full of men. Watch posture change. Watch breathing shift. Watch vocal tone tighten. You will see nervous systems activate before intellect engages. That activation is not random. Sex sits at the center of masculinity mythology. Strength, dominance, performance, capability, reputation. And if masculinity has not been internally stabilized, sexuality destabilizes it quickly. Most men believe they are reacting from principle. Often, they are reacting from a perceived threat. This episode is not about erasing difference. It is not about flattening heterosexual identity. It is not about elevating homosexuality above it. It's about composure. Because composure reveals whether identity is secure. Secure men do not panic around sexuality. Insecure men do. Before we go further, we have to untangle something foundational. Desire comes before identity. You didn't intellectually reason your way into attraction. Desire is biological. It's neurological. It is sensory. Identity is constructed afterwards. Identity organizes desire into a narrative. I am this. I am not that. I belong here. I don't belong there. Problems arise when identity becomes fragile, because fragile identity requires protection. The more fragile something is, the more energy you spend guarding it. If heterosexuality becomes something that must be constantly defended socially, insecurity is already present. If homosexuality becomes something that must be constantly proven valid, insecurity is also present. Security feels different. Security does not need to loudly reinforce itself. Does not need to eliminate ambiguity. It tolerates conversations. It tolerates differences. It tolerates proximity. Let me ground this in something I lived through. I had a Southern friend, masculine, steady, comfortable in most rooms. We built a friendship over months, shared interest, shared humor, shared space almost daily. Had several things in common. We enjoyed the same movies, same music, same sports. Then he found out I was gay. That moment wasn't explosive. It was subtle. But the energy changed. Distance entered. Text slowed. Conversations thinned. Imitations faded. That moment taught me something deeper than rejection. It revealed anxiety around association. Many men are not afraid of gay men. They are afraid of implication. Afraid that proximity could be misinterpreted. Afraid that comfort could be mistaken. Afraid that closeness could destabilize their social positioning. The question underneath it all becomes, if I'm too comfortable, what does that say about me? That question is rooted in insecurity, not hatred. And insecurity demands distance. Secure masculinity does not require distance to remain intact. It does not collapse under proximity, does not fear being mistaken. It understands its own stability too deeply. When masculinity is conditional, association feels risky. When masculinity is integrated, association is irrelevant. That difference is profound. Let's talk about something that always comes up. I've had straight men ask me, have you ever been with a woman? Or tell me, you just haven't met the right woman. It's rarely hostile. It's usually half curious, half dismissive. And I usually respond with something very simple. Have you ever been with a man? Maybe you just haven't met the right man yet. I don't say it aggressively. I say it evenly. And that moment reveals something immediately. The shift, the pause, the defensive laugh. Because what feels hypothetical to them suddenly becomes personal when reversed. That reversal isn't meant to attack. It's diagnostic. It forces someone to examine how casually they treat difference when they feel distance from it. Most men do not consider questioning their own orientation because their identity feels stable. But when you invert the logic, you expose whether that stability is real. If the idea of same-sex experience feels threatening, ask why. If curiosity feels destabilizing, ask why. You do not have to experiment with everything you imagine, but the mere existence of the possibility should not produce panic. Security does not crumble when hypotheticals arise. Insecurity does. And you can see it in the micro reactions. Now let's talk about something most men won't admit openly. Sexual tension exists in male spaces. Gym spaces, locker rooms, male friendships, work environments. Not always romantic, not always explicit, but energy moves. Men are embodied creatures. Hierarchy and attraction signals are constantly scanning the room. Even when attraction is not acted upon, awareness can exist. The question becomes, can you maintain composure inside that awareness, or do you react to it? Sexual composure is not about denying attraction, it's about containing it. Being aware without being aware without being destabilized. I have absolutely been in spaces where sexual tension exists that was not explicitly romantic. The ability to remain steady in those moments becomes a test of integration. Do you overcompensate? Do you overcorrect? Do you withdraw? Do you perform harder masculinity? Or do you remain neutral and regulated? The body often reacts faster than the mind. This is where composure is tested. If presence alone rattles you, you are not unstable because desire exists. You're unstable because you have not trained yourself to regulate under it. Most men are never taught that skill. They either suppress attraction entirely or indulge it recklessly. Very few learn to sit with it. I have been publicly challenged about my masculinity and orientation before. Not violently, not dramatically. Subtle jabs, question in tone, offhanded commentary. And many times I choose to walk away. That confuses people. They expect defense. They expect counterattack. But sometimes the most dominant response is non-engagement. Walking away is not surrender, it is selection. You're choosing not to reward instability with reaction. Reactive men need engagement to validate themselves. Integrated men do not. If someone questions your masculinity and you crumble, insecurity was present. If someone questions your masculinity and you rage, insecurity was present. If someone questions your masculinity and you remain unmoved, that is stability. Walking away demonstrates hierarchy without announcing it. It says, your challenge does not alter my internal state. And that is power. Now we need to address the gray space carefully. Modern language includes sexual spectrum terminology more openly than ever before. That doesn't mean every man identifies fluidly. It doesn't mean everyone agrees with every framework. But the existence of gray space alone destabilizes rigid systems. Why? Because rigid identity relies on clear lines. You are this or you are that. But reality often contains nuance. Secure identity can tolerate nuance. It can acknowledge spectrum language without feeling erased. It can say that may describe some people without fearing contamination. Insecure identity treats nuance as invasion. The mere suggestion of complexity feels threatening. That threat response is about fragility, not moral conviction. If gray space produces anger, ask yourself what that anger is protecting. Security tolerates gray without dissolving into it. Insecurity requires black and white to feel steady. That applies to heterosexual identity. It also applies to homosexual identity. Security is not defined by how loudly you defend your category. It is defined by how little you are disturbed when others define theirs. So let's slow this down further. When sexual identity feels challenged or even questioned, the body reacts before language forms. The nervous system does not wait for analysis. It fires. Heart rate rising, breathing shortens, posture stiffens, tone changes. That isn't ideology. It's physiology. The primitive brain interprets instability as threat, and threat produces reaction. Fight, flight, freeze. Some men fight. They become aggressive, dismissive, sarcastic, confrontational. Some men flee. They disengage, withdraw, distant quietly. And some freeze. They go silent, avoid eye contact, or shift topics. None of these responses mean you are morally wrong. They mean you are untrained in regulation. This is crucial. The presence of sexual tension is not the problem. your inability to regulate under it is. Most men spend years training their bodies, lifting weights, building strength, increasing endurance. Very few train their nervous systems. Composure is trained. You train breathing under pressure. You train stillness under provocation. You train tone under tension. If someone else's sexuality causes your body to spike, that spike originates inside you. That realization is confronting, but it is liberating because it means you can train yourself out of it. Let's redefine dominance completely. Dominance is not loudness. It is not intimidation. It is not physical power. Dominance is control of tempo. The calmest nervous system in the room sets the pace. Volatile men try to accelerate rooms. Stable men slow them down. Which one feels powerful? If you've ever watched a truly grounded leader during conflict, you've seen this. Everyone else escalates, he lowers his tone. Everyone else reacts, he pauses. That pause shifts hierarchy. Sexual composure functions the same way. If attraction enters the space and you panic, you lose tempo. If someone questions you and you explode, you lose tempo. If sexual nuance is introduced and you attack it immediately, you lose tempo. Control of tempo is authority. Authority does not beg. Authority does not panic. Authority regulates. Secure men don't need to eliminate sexual complexity. They need to remain steady in its presence. That steadiness becomes attractive in itself, not sexually, energetically. Rooms trust regulations. Rooms align towards stability. Even men who are uncomfortable eventually respect composure. Now let's talk directly about male insecurity around the fear of being perceived as gay. Many men carry unspoken anxiety around being mistaken, not because they are secretly confused, but because masculinity has been socially policed for generations. Don't be mistaken. Don't be soft. Don't be suspected. Suspicion has historically threatened male reputation. So men tighten, distance themselves, correct themselves, overreact. But here's the uncomfortable truth. If the possibility of being mistaken destabilizes you, your identity is externally anchored. It depends on social confirmation. Externally anchored identity is fragile. Internally anchored identity is unmoved by interpretation. If someone questions you and your posture doesn't change, you are secure. If someone implies something about you and you can laugh evenly without tension, you are secure. Security is calm under interpretation. Insecurity is reactive to it. And this is not only a heterosexual male issue. Gay men experience insecurity around masculine legitimacy too. If straight men fear being mistaken as gay men often fear being dismissed as not masculine enough. Both are navigating reputation anxiety. Both respond with performance when insecure. Performance is exhausting. Integration is quieter. Integration says, I know who I am. Your confusion does not rewire me. That is composure. Here's the cost of constantly reacting to sexual insecurity. You become guarded. You become hyper-aware. You become easily triggered. And when you are easily triggered, you are easily controlled. If someone can destabilize you with a joke, they own your nervous system. If someone can provoke you with the implication, they own your tempo. Integrated men are difficult to manipulate because they are difficult to rattle. They understand attraction, identity, nuance, and complexity without imploding. That does not mean they abandon conviction. It means they do not tie conviction to panic. This is the difference between confident masculinity and defensive masculinity. Confident masculinity is composed. Defensive masculinity is loud. Now let's slow this down and ask yourself honestly. When sexual identity becomes visible, does your breathing change? When someone mentions spectrum or nuance, do you tense? When someone questions you, do you stiffen or laugh lightly or laugh tightly? When attraction enters a room that isn't explicitly romantic, do you overcorrect? Do you perform harder masculinity? Do you over-explain yourself? Do you compensate? Composure is visible in micro moments. Integration shows up in breath, not slogans. Rigid masculinity fears being mistaken. Integrated masculinity fears nothing about perception. Rigid sexuality attacks nuance. Secure sexuality tolerates it. Sexual dynamics do not destabilize secure men. Insecurity does. Desire is not the enemy. Lack of discipline is. Nuance is not the enemy. Fragility is. Strength without composure is volatility. Desire without regulation is chaos. Identity without security is noise. Secure men don't react. They regulate. They slow the room. They absorb tension. And then they lead. I'm Chris Willingham, and this is Without Permission.